I'm going to call to order this October 22nd, 2004 Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting for the City of Auburn. And I'm going to October 22nd, 2004 Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting for the City of Auburn. And I'm going to October 22nd.
Like that, did you pre-record this?
I am live. This is not a bot. Okay, we'll try this again. Welcome to the October 2nd, 2024 meeting of the Auburn Board of Zoning Adjustment in the City of Auburn. I have some communications to read at the beginning of every meeting, and that is that any persons aggrieved by any decision of the board may, within 15 days after such decision, appeal to the circuit court having jurisdiction according to section 902.02 of the zoning ordinance of the City of Auburn, Alabama. The board consists of 5 regular members and 2 supernumeraries, and the supernumeraries participate in all discussions but only vote when necessary to assure 4 voting members, and have a board consisting of 5 members when possible. All decisions are made with a roll call vote, and a concurring vote of 4 members is required to approve an application for variance. All regular members and supernumeraries in attendance can participate in discussion, but only regular members can vote unless called upon by the chair to vote. So, having said that, we are ready to review and either approve or reject our minutes, correct? I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Wait, let me call roll first.
Oh, are we all here?
Will Faulkner.
Here.
Frost Rollins.
Here.
Emmy Sorrells.
Here.
Letitia Smith.
Here.
Marty Heffron.
Here.
Mary Boyd.
Here.
Dan Berry Jr.
Here.
Okay, approval of minutes. I make a motion to approve the May 1st, 2024 meeting minutes of the Board of Zoning Adjustment.
I think it's June 6th.
I'm sorry, June 6th.
I'll second.
Will Faulkner.
Yes.
Frost Rollins.
Yes.
Emmy Sorrells.
Yes.
Letitia Smith.
Yes.
Marty Heffron.
Yes.
So the minutes are approved. We will now move on to our first item, which is a variance request entitled Tumor Street. The item number is BZ 2024-008.
Yeah, thank you. So if you just want to go to the... all right, so thank you. So what we have is a variance request to Table 5.3 Development Design Standard Requirements for Urban Core. Residential uses and UC shall provide 1 parking space per bedroom. Development Design Standard Requirements within the Urban Core, Urban Neighborhood West End District refers to Section 51301 residential parking, which refers to section 50202. Performance residential developments, private dormitories shall build 1 parking space per bedroom plus 1 visitor space per 10 bedrooms within the project. So this is a variance request. I think we broke it down in the actual analysis of how many parking spaces they're requesting. But this is a variance request to 171 parking spaces to the required parking. And so this is a split zone property. If you want to go to the approximate map, yeah, so there's several nuances with this site. This is a split zone property in between UNW and UC. And UC, I think it's, with the breakdown, there's different parking requirements. So it's 1-to-1 in one and then 110% in the other. And the required parking that they're going to build, if they just sited them normally, was going to be about 900 or so. And then with how they configured the bedrooms and the parking accordingly, they were able to split it and get it down to 864. And so then on top of that, they were requesting a variance of 20%. And not just because of the parking variance, just because of the parking. They were requesting this because of on-site stormwater issues that they were claiming. So in the report, I just kind of break down, just kind of going through if this is a hardship, if this is what is the perceived hardship, and then just kind of what is the city's response to that. So the applicant states that the on-site flooding issue is the reason that they cannot meet the required parking. There's a challenge with going deeper on site. If they were to go any deeper to provide the parking, that they would have issues meeting the water mitigation, pumping, et cetera, that it would become cost prohibitive for them to pump out all of the water to build the parking necessary. And so in the staff report, I really just kind of break down how that this site, if we want to go to the next slide, that this site itself is encumbered by several easements, and I guess also with the existing challenges just kind of around the zoning, I guess also just with the easements and everything going on, that had been incredibly flexible just kind of on my end, and everything with my interpretations just kind of around what was going to happen with this site. And so with the split zoning, they were able to have total autonomy over if they wanted to site the beds on one side of the line versus another, and then how that would affect the parking totals. Like I said, they're already able to shave off 100 parking spaces just to get down to what the current parking that they're asking the additional variance to as a result of that. Also, like states in the report, is that the city is amenable to moving some of these easements. So there are 3 easements on site. I know it's like a lot of red. They're not broken out, and they have a presentation later where they break them out. But 3 of these easements can be relocated. The city is open to moving those, and as long as the developer pays for those. And so, like I said, we were being very agreeable, I think very accommodating, just kind of around some of the challenges with this site, and really kind of allowing them to kind of work through them and kind of present any options necessary for them to do that. And so I guess just kind of when it came to the additional request for the parking variance, the origin of the parking variance or the origin of the parking standards downtown of having to park 110% to one bedroom came out of there being an overflow of parking, or an overflow of guest parking from people parking on the streets because their guests were coming. So people were parking 1-to-1 where they were parking all of their residents on site. But when their residents had guests, that would still cause issues in the downtown where people would then park on the street in front of residences that they weren't living in. And so that was the origin of the Planning Commission creating the 1.1 ratio for parking downtown currently. And so the variance directly undermines that. Like I said, the city doesn't see any hardship with that. I think as far as the flooding concerns, I reached out to the city engineer and the Parks and Rec director, just kind of, not Parks and Rec, Public Works director, regarding a lot of the stormwater concerns. So for everyone in the audience, the city handles stormwater on a 3-pronged front. We have water resource management, we have engineering that handles the stormwater, and then we have Public Works actual response to on-site issues with flooding. And so talking to the Public Works director and the city engineer, they stated that since there had been mitigation done back in 2017, that they are not aware of any concerns or any complaints that have been made to the city formally regarding any flooding on site. And so like I talked about in the staff report, there was an initial study done in 2016 to kind of outline and identify what some of the issues were, and their options laid out. The mitigations that were done was rerouting and adding a larger capacity downtown. And so those pipes that are under this site that you can see kind of in this platted easement here, I think it's 2 72-inch pipes. So a lot of those are what pipes that most people in the room would be able to walk through. So the capacity was fixed. And like I said, the 2 department heads who deal with a lot of the on-site concerns and the complaints associated with this site have not gotten any complaints associated with stormwater flooding since this has happened. I think the one time that there was on-site flooding would have been when the construction of 191 happened, and that was not tied to a flooding event. It was because the construction had blocked the drainage path of the flow downtown, just kind of on site. So from the city standpoint, the hardship on this site, like I said, I mean, from the easements being there, like I said, the city's been accommodating about those being moved, has also been flexible about where the bedrooms can be located, where the garages can be located. It's really kind of allowed for them to decide where the line is and kind of operate accordingly. And so I guess we want to go back to the slide before this. Yeah, so as you see, like I said, on the split zone side, these aren't surveyed, so these aren't hard boundaries. Like I said, I mean, we really provided the flexibility to kind of site these accordingly with what would be most beneficial for this project. And so with that, like I said, those accommodations from siting, from also allowing them to, if they need to move several of these easements, they'd have that option. And then also just kind of with the mitigation that the city did in 2017 to this site, the city does not recognize any, or if there is any flooding issues on site, the city has not been made aware of it. And like I said, if there were any issues over the past couple of years, we would have been made aware, and the department heads responsible for addressing any on-site issues have stated that there has not been any communications to them that these exist. So the city doesn't view this as a hardship. I guess we don't make any recommendations associated with it, but these are, I guess this is the city's stance on it, just kind of regarding the parking variance request. I just kind of wanted to provide an overview for it. So with that, if you guys have any questions, turn it over to y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess we probably need to open the public hearing. I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go.
At this point, we'll open a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on this item.
Do we speak outside the public hearing?
Yep.
We're gonna need more than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Can you pull up that slide deck, please?
Oh, well, it's,
You want us to do it after the public
yeah,
hearing?
Don't, don't we first need to hear from the applicant? Or we-
I would rather hear from them first before the public hearing,
All right.
if possible.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, so we'll hear from the
Yeah,
applicant.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
That- Permissible according to, okay. Could we hear from the applicant, please?
Yeah, good evening, Brett Basquin with the Foresight Group. I'm here with Eric Leak with Landmark Properties. Good evening. This variance request, there's multiple hardships on this particular property. It's not just one or flooding. This particular site is made up of 4 existing parcels that extend from Wright to Toomer Street. Our variance is a variance request to reduce the required parking by 20%. Our hardship are these existing easements that are challenges. There's several of these easements that are basically draining stormwater runoff and sanitary sewer from all of downtown through this property and through this site. So it's just not for the benefit of 1 or 2 adjacent properties. It's pretty much serving the whole north part of downtown. We'll get into a little bit more details later on why which easements can be relocated and which ones cannot. And then, yes, there is an existing known stormwater issue. The property owner's here, and he's the one that said that even though the stormwater improvements have been made by the city, the site does still experience flooding, and he can come up and tell you about that later. In regards to parking comparables, Justice mentioned the downtown stuff. So there's multiple downtown parking requirements depending on where you are in downtown for residential. Okay, there's different ones. So we'll go through and explain what those parking requirements are by which area of town you're in and how it applies to us. But we do have comparable property data from the Standard, which they own and operate and developed, Uncommon and 320 Mag. And all of those projects required at least a 1 parking space per bed ratio, and all of them are not experiencing a utilization higher than 84%. The parking requirements that Justice is referring to were done back more than 20 years ago, before I came here. I think the way the university has gone to with their robust transit system, walking campus, has changed the way these students and most of the people downtown interact with the university. So we'll get into a little bit more of that as well. Our particular project is a mixed-use project. We do have commercial on the first floor along Wright Street. We do have about 343 units and about 800 beds in the 2 buildings that we're trying to do. this easement bifurcates our building. We can't build a building all the way across because of these easements. We're not allowed to span over these easements. So that's kind of a brief overview. We'll kind of dig into these details and have some exhibits to kind of show you guys some more and explain these different hardships. But I'll turn it over to Eric to explain a little bit about their company.
Yeah, just super fast. Eric Leith, Landmark Properties. We're based out of Georgia. We are a vertically integrated housing company. We're both our own developer, general contractor, owner, and property manager. We've been doing the company started in 2004, originally focused in the Southeast, but now nationwide. How do I control this slide? Sorry. Oh. The button. Oh. Oh, I'm sorry, thanks. Oh, yeah, so we're now a national company. We own and operate and have developed housing properties all over the country. Originally, we focused solely on student housing. We now have also expanded into traditional multifamily and build-to-rent single-family homes. This would be our second project in Auburn. As Brett mentioned, we did the standard Auburn, which delivered in 2019. 683 bedrooms. It is currently 100% occupied, so all of the bedrooms are occupied, and then we now have the majority of the retail leased as well. So Brett mentioned where the site was, but it's located here, and then that's a reference to where the standard is as well. So it spans this site, and it can't tell from the map. There's actually a fair amount of topography on the site where both ends of the site are higher than the middle, where it sinks pretty dramatically, which is where these stormwater easements are flowing. Existing conditions, again, this is an assemblage of 4 properties. All of these properties now have a lower density housing product on them. We would be proposing to redevelop the entire site. I know we mentioned this a little bit already, but so there are several easements on the site. Several of these we are proposing to relocate at our expense. The issue is predominantly around the stormwater easements in red that are bisecting the center of the site. As Justice mentioned, those are significant diameter pipes, and because of that cannot be relocated. And because of that, we are having to split the site into 2 buildings. We've included a couple of conceptual renderings. I'd like to point out that we have not been to the Downtown Design Review Committee yet, so these are purely representative. But this is the type of product we'd be looking to build here, which I think is in line with what the standard looks like as well. You can see here where the 2 buildings are separated through the center of the site. This is where those existing stormwater easements are located. We would propose to connect the 2 buildings with the sky bridge. So again, just a conceptual rendering. Again, we've not been to the DRC yet. Just to mention this as well, this is a split zone site. And so the way the 2 buildings effectively sit on either side of the split zoning, it just so happens that stormwater easement also runs through where the zoning split is. If it wasn't for that stormwater easement, we could essentially build one contiguous building, and we would not have this parking issue that we're here to talk about today. But because of that easement, we are effectively forced to split the project into 2 buildings, which also affects the amount of parking we can fit on the site. I think it's also worth noting that the site is also adjacent to another downtown zoning district directly across Wright Street, which also has a different parking requirement than the 2 zones that we are in on the other side of the street. Again, just an aerial rendering of our conceptual site plan that shows the separation of the 2 buildings. And then here is the site plan. So you can see that we are doing wrapped structured, or proposing, I should say, wrapped structured parking in both individual buildings so that your parking won't be visible from any of the streets, right? They'll be wrapped in residential units or retail on Wright Street, and then with structured parking in the center of the project. Even as contemplated, that parking will go underground to a degree, right? So we are already encompassing subsurface parking. You can see through the middle of the site, that's about where that stormwater easement runs. That is a surface parking lot, again, to leave open to the sky for the stormwater easement that exists on the site. Just another level up of the proposed project. And then here's the section kind of showing how we are envisioning this. You can see here, you can see some of the topography. The site's much higher on the one side than the other side. We're already proposing to go 2 levels below grade on the parking to get to the amount of parking that we are currently showing. And then you can see the break in the site where that existing stormwater easement runs that is being left open to the sky. I'm going to turn over to Brett a little bit on what's going on with the stormwater and drainage. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, back in 2016, the city evaluated the drainage through this site. This was a city-initiated study done on private that's affecting this property and this property owner. As part of that study, it recognized that there was drainage issues in this area and gave multiple recommendations to fix it. Multiple options. They did go with one of the options, and they did make improvements in 2017. But within that 2017, they're still experiencing flooding and larger rain events. Now, this is exhibits from that drainage study. You can kind of see where our site is down at the bottom where it says site location. You can kind of see this orange outline all the way around there. That's the whole part of North Downtown that's draining through this site. It's over 60 acres. It encompasses across the railroad, old Spencer lumber. It goes way up that way, and it's even draining the stuff from the east. Even their previous development, the Standard, where the old Checkers used to be, all that side of town drains and comes down through here, both storm and sewer in the same easement areas. So it's a significant part of downtown that's draining through this site. This map is a sewer map. This is the city's sewer map. The red outline is our property. As you can see, we kind of have sewer coming through our property in 3 locations. The line on the far left, we can reroute that through the center. The one in the bottom, we can tighten up to our property. But the main sewer line that's running at top of page and coming through, it's got to go where it's got to go. It follows, the old saying, the poop flows downhill. We can only make it go downhill. And based upon the topography of the site, that's how it flows and goes. We can't change it. We can give ourselves a little bit more room by relocating these, but we can't remove them through the site. This is an exhibit from our survey. The red outline, again, is our property. The orange lines are the sewer, and the blue lines are the drainage pipes that are going through this site. If you notice, wow, it looks small, but hopefully you guys can see it on the screen. I have some red boxes that kind of give you an idea of the grades on that site. So in the bottom right-hand corner, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner on Wright Street, that's the high point of the site there. And if you look at those grades, it's 703, right? And then in the middle of Wright Street, it's 700. And then when I go to the north there, it's 694. So I have 7 feet of fall along Wright Street on that location, okay? Now, when I go from that site in to the middle, I have 15 feet of fall on the north side down into my site, and I have 25 feet of fall on the bottom right-hand side. So it kind of dips down. I have 25 feet of fall. Along from Wright Street to the middle of the site where this blue line's coming in. And then if you take that over to Toomer Street, in the bottom left of Toomer Street, I'm at 687. So I go up 8 feet on that side, and then if I go up to Toomer Street on the top left side, I'm up at 690, so I'm 11 foot higher. So what I'm telling you is there's significant grade. Everything funnels through the middle of this site. Trying to relocate this stuff we can't run it uphill. And to chase this around, if we tried to reroute it all around downtown, we would have to be running some of this stuff 20 and 30 feet deep down Toomer Street, which just isn't practical to do. Again, so when you look at our cut section here, we do have those bottom 2 levels. So the bottom 2 levels, it is underground when it's on the Wright Street side. When it's on the back side, back where those storm drainage easements are, it's at grade. So we're not going below the existing grade back there where it experiences flooding. And so That's currently what we're showing to, that includes our 20% variance on our parking. If we had to provide the full parking, we would have to go down below that drainage, below that flooding elevation, in those storm pipes.
Brett, why do you have to go down? Why couldn't you go up?
Okay, so we're capped on height, right? So we have a maximum height in downtown of 75 feet from the highest point on the site. So essentially, we can only go up 75 feet from Wright Street, and that's the tallest we can go with our building. So we're capped on going up, we're capped on going out, and we're capped on going down. So we only have what we have to work with within the confines of this property, without, basically devaluing the allowable use on it.
Can't go lower on the Wright Street side?
Yeah, I mean, you can to a degree. We are to a degree here, right? We are below when we're up against Wright Street, we're 2 levels below grade from Wright Street
Can you
in
go
that
below-
current
can you go below
scenario.
that, though, to make up for the difference?
Well, the problem is how do we get it out,
Can you use a pump?
To a degree, yes, you can, some. But if we're just draining that area, yes. But we have to be able to get down. It's when we have to transition down in like a ramp in a parking deck, right? So it's not like we can go down in 50 feet, right? Typically, those ramps to get down are going to be, if we're trying to get down 10 foot, right? We have a minimum clear height of 10 feet. So if we were running down at a 10%, we need 100 foot of run, right, to get down 10 feet. And so we can get down in a certain distance, but just trying to do like say on half, it's going to be tough to keep going down and still get ramps down and ramps up that work.
So that work at all, or that work and have drainage without pumps?
Well, to work at all, to get down, yes. I mean, if we were to go down any more than this, you would have pumps to have to get the water out.
Okay.
But then trying to get ramps in within the shortened distance that we have to work with, because you could probably maybe drop, I would have to look, maybe half you could get down. But you would need, what were we talking, was it 1 or 2 levels down to meet the 20%?
Well, in our initial estimations, we would have to go down a full another level to actually get to the full parking requirement.
So you'd have to add one more level
Just one
of
more
parking. Is that correct?
Full level, full length of the building down.
Okay, or if,
Or two halves, if you know what I mean? If you
Or
could
like,
get it to
yeah,
fit in
Half
that.
one and then half the other. Okay.
Well, I actually don't know that that's exactly right, because in those shorter distances, depending on the grade of the ramp, you can't always park on ramps, right? So speed ramps, higher degree angles, you can't park on. Lower graded ramps, you can park on, but I don't know that we have enough distance to do like the lower grade ramps that you can park on versus speed ramps. So I'm not saying we can, I just don't know that we've studied that, sorry.
so that drives, if you feel like you can't, if you find out that you can't from a engineering perspective, or from a parkability perspective, then the solution to that is to go deeper?
Presumably,
in
presumably,
theory,
yes.
y-
Yeah, well, you'd have to go longer, right? And you would have to go full length, right? In order to do it. If we can't get it in too short, right? If the ramp's too steep and you're parking on it, you go to open your door, right? Once you get over about 6%, it claps back to you, or it flies open, depends on which side of you're opening your door on, you know what I mean?
And code won't allow you to park on
right,
steep ramps.
so, go ahead. Letitia.
I just want to back up for a minute. One, I think the rendering is very nice. But I want to go back to the easement conversation because I want to make sure I'm getting this right. So we all know that there are some existing easements, and the city has agreed to move some or relocate them as required, and you've also admitted that there are some things that you guys are willing to do at your own cost to get your property made.
Yes.
So the main thing that you're focusing on, though, is the stormwater piece. The easement. I think I heard somebody say
That's
that.
part of it, yeah. I mean, we have a rendering that shows, like, look, if we could go the full length and have this as one building, we can park it, not a problem. It's just us being able to, having to separate the building and stay out the easement prevents us from basically filling in that area with parking.
Gotcha. But I have a question about the data. So I want to know, We talked about all the easements and everything is kind of going into one area. Want to go back to the flooding stuff and the fact that the city has made some changes and corrections. And I think I heard one of you say that there's still flooding issues. I want you to quantify that. Like, how bad is it? What does it look like? Can we quantify?
Yeah, I mean, the property owner told us that the improvements that they made did help. In the
Okay.
larger rain events, it still builds up enough pressure and blows the tops off of the manhole lids and the grate inlets that are in the parking lot. And so that does happen. In regards to like quantifying it, I
Oh,
mean,
there we go.
Van can speak to it. He's the
Okay.
property owner.
Hey, Van Northcutt, I own the property there. What the city did in 2017, and time must fly because I didn't realize that long ago, but it greatly improved it.
Okay.
But before that time in here, it was blowing the storm drain lids off and water was coming up this high. Cars were getting flooded. Cars, and the floorboards of the car was flooding in there. What they did, vastly improved it with the bigger pipes. They had a 90-degree turn on one end of it down there, that pressure was just backing the water up. In two different spots was just blowing out, like I say, about 3 foot out of the ground. So it helped. It did not completely solve it. Within the last year, there's been 2 instances that I've been by there that the cap on the storm drain was moved over in here. So the water is still coming back, nothing like it was. It doesn't take it long after the rain stops or whatever now to go ahead and get on out of there. But it has happened 2 times this year that I know of that it's blown the top off of that cap over there.
Okay.
So
And
but it is improved
Okay.
over what it was before greatly.
Okay, great.
And that's affected surface parking since 2017 or the below grade parking?
Do it now.
Has it,
No, he only, this is just in the existing where he just has surface parking right
Right.
there.
Right, this,
okay.
yeah, this is just the parking in the bottom of that,
Yeah.
that, there now. That's
just
where
wondered
it
if-
was getting up into the bottom of the cars at one point. Now, it blows the top off of it in here, but within a short period of time, that water will run on out in here, but it is backing up at someplace below it. The pressure is pushing the top off those lids. right there.
okay, so, but there, you haven't had any reports of
Well,
private
the city
property
wouldn't know 'cause
owners?
it's on private
No,
property.
no.
You know?
Have they has
That's-
anyone reported anything?
That's
Okay.
my fault. I have not reported that. It's, like I say, it's not almost flooding the units like it used to.
Okay.
Now it just raises up, blows that top off in there, but in a short period of time, it goes on down. So, if you want me to, every time it happens, yes, I can call the city again. But it has been improved so much, I did not call it in because it was a great improvement.
Right, and that's your prerogative to do or not do. And I wasn't asking you to speak to other property adjacent to the site. I was just curious, and I'm curious as to whether anyone had any knowledge of that. I know that the city said that they did not, but
And so the reason I was going down that,
specifically backing up in
Yeah.
underground parking garages that are below grade to whatever depth they
Well,
are.
Yeah, but it'd only be on his property, I mean.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I understand. Just looking for evidential
Oh, yeah.
data.
I'm not aware.
Okay. Not that it's your responsibility. I'm asking.
Well, and before we go down that rabbit hole too far too, I'm pretty sure that stormwater is not in our purview.
it's not, that's correct.
So that is not anything, we don't have anything to do with a variance based on stormwater, so just having said that.
And I appreciate you saying that because my question was only going from the standpoint though of when we talked about separating the building, the whole separation of the building was based on the fact that we were saying that we had the issue with the stormwater. So one of the things I'm trying to assess is that I think you demonstrated that you can build on the property even as it is. I think what we're coming down to is that you can't meet the parking. So at the end of the day, I'm just trying to, because all the stormwater and all the conversations about the easements are going back to what the variance is about, which is in fact the parking. So I'm trying to just make sure. Okay, all right.
You're right on target there.
And speaking of those easements, I mean, I think, so, I mean, if you're on that easement slide we're just on, right, I mean, as part of this, the easement's running horizontally on the north and the south, we would be marginally relocating to facilitate the building. That one green, sewer easement we would also be relocating at our cost to be putting in where the red vertical stormwater easements are that we cannot move, so. And then, because we were anticipating that there would be concerns about reducing the parking requirement and what that could do. We pulled data. We've owned and operated the standard now going on the 4th year. The parking at the standard has never been more than 84% occupied. That's the residential parking. So as low as 72%, as high as 84% through 4 years of ownership. And through all of those periods of time, the residential portion of it was at least 99% occupied. So we feel like we have pretty good data that the parking reduction that we're asking for is actually supported by utilization of the market and won't create any ill effects. We also called some other properties. We called on Common, 320 West Mag. Both of them are currently parked at about 82% utilization for the residential parking. And then 191 College is actually parked at a lower parking ratio because it is in the College Edge overlay, which is the zoning directly across the street from us. And so, and actually, if we were in the College Edge overlay, we would meet the parking requirement for that overlay that's directly across the street. But obviously, we're not in it. But, and
Can you
then,
go back to that real quick?
yes, of course.
Okay, so you're referencing, what was the last one you referenced?
191 College is in the College Edge overlay, which is a lower parking requirement. Sorry.
What's their parking requirement? How much lower is it?
I'm glad you asked, because we're going to get to that. In the College Edge overlay, which that is the property that fronts on College, right? So where the new Target is and there's apartments, right? The parking requirement there is for a one-bedroom unit. For a one-bedroom unit, it's 1 per unit. If it's a 2 or 3 bedroom unit, it's 2 spaces per unit. So it's not on beds, it's per units, because when the College Edge, it was more of for the urban environment, into where everybody's not going to be parked, you know what I mean, is going to be having vehicles. So if you apply that to our site, okay, the building in the back off of Toomer Street, which requires 1.1 per parking space, we're not touching that parking requirement. We would park that one because that's part of the private dormitory side, where there'll be, 4 bedrooms and 5 bedroom units, right, in that particular building. In the front building off of Wright Street, it has to be traditional multifamily, market rate. So 1 bedroom units, 2 bedroom units, 3 bedroom units. All right. So if you utilize that parking requirement on just our front building, it requires 30% less parking just on our building. So if our site was just 50 feet across the street, that's the parking requirement. So what we're asking for is not something that's drastically different, that's not being utilized in the city. It's what is being applied across the street. We're just asking for that on our building on that front edge, as opposed to the one on the back. So I just wanted to make that clear on that. So that parking requirement is much less, literally just right across the street in the College Edge Overlay District. And here's,
This is just like a hypothetical example. So if we could go fully across the site, we could park 887 parking spaces with the same amount of residential density we have now. So we wouldn't need the variance. And obviously we can't do that, but we thought it would be helpful to illustrate that because of this hardship created by these stormwater easements and the breakage of the building and the associated parking levels is what's driving this. Not that we think this amount of parking is needed, obviously, but it would be possible to do it if we did not have that breakup of the building.
So Vane has a picture from 2020 of water, and you can see it bubbling up. See how it's shooting up out of here? That's in 2020. So shame on Vane for not reporting. I think that picture says 1,000 words on what we're dealing with here in regards to.
I have to think.
Is it
this,
important to
I
show-
think I had to report. Now, with the cap blowing off, I don't think I did that these last 2 times, but this, where the cars are almost flooding, I can't go back, but we had some discussion with the city about this. Yeah.
Are we able to put that on camera so people at home can see what we're seeing? Or what day was that? Just out of curiosity. What about anything
May
this
the
past
27th,
week?
2020. Yeah.
I was about to say, we just had a very significant rain amount. Do we have any photos, or did you have any reports from your tenants from when we had this last, 10 inches that just dropped on us last week?
not from the tenants. This is this past time, no.
Okay.
And the top wasn't off this last time.
Okay.
The last time I put the top back on was probably 4 months ago, somewhere in there, when we had a fast rain in a short period of time.
Right.
In here is when it blew the top off of it in there. But like I say, this, again, I was thinking, I didn't realize the city did the work in 2017. I thought it was a little later than that. But this picture here shows what happened in 2020 after the work was done in 2017.
Okay.
So at some point,
It's gonna be hard to know, like, what happened, like, did we have a week where it rained? That was COVID,
Yeah.
nobody remembers what happened.
The entire site conditions.
Try not to, yeah,
Okay.
thank
The
you.
entire area that feeds it has changed in ways we
Yeah.
have not quantified here.
I mean, since 2020, we've had at least, what, 2 other, we've had Olive, 320, and probably
Olive
West and
doesn't
Right.
drain. None of those drain through here. They're all south of here. They
Okay.
don't drain through here. Those two don't. I mean, the only change in this basin that would affect would be Guthrie's, right? And that was just changing from a gas station, from a, office,
Well, whatever it
old
was.
thing to there. And, Uncommon was already built by then, so
But as you said, we're not here to address
Yeah.
stormwater.
one other quick thing in here, if you look at that, that's the lid I have to keep putting back on. You can see the water turning there. If somebody fell down in that, they're gonna probably end up under the stadium over there, because this water ends up under the stadium over there. So that's, to me, that's a dangerous situation there with that water turning right there and the lid not being on it there, but you can see it moving, how fast the water is there.
Thank you, Ben. We actually just hit on the college's overlay, but that was the next slide, right? As you can see, we're adjacent to it, right? And so if we were in that parking district, we could comply with what we're currently asking for. Just representative image there. And I guess, anecdotally as well, there is a new parking deck directly across the street owned by the city. And so, our parking ratio that we are asking for would be, essentially 20% reduction on the residential spaces. We would still be providing some dedicated retail and visitor parking, to meet the city's goals. And then just, there is a city-owned deck across the street. And so that's really, the conclusion for the presentation, which is, we have stormwater and easement hardships that are, bifurcating the site, that are forcing us to split the building. While we are relocating several easements, we're not able to relocate those easements to bifurcate the site. We have data that we think supports the parking reduction that we're asking for, that we think demonstrates that there will be no ill effect to the community by granting this parking reduction variance, because we know from the standard and from managing it that this ratio is about the utilization of where actual tenants are using their cars. I mean, as a long-term holder of our assets, we care very much about having a property that people want to live in, and if there's not enough spaces for the number of people, they'll find somewhere else to live. And so we're very sensitive to that and feel like the data very clearly supports that this variance is in line with what the market actually is over at least a 4-year period. And then, lastly, there is precedent for this level of parking in Auburn, just directly across the street. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and present, and we're both happy to answer any questions. So thank you so much.
But what would happen if you did get approval and you did have 20% less parking, but then people needed places to park? What would their option be?
So, I mean, that's a fair question. I mean, we don't, over 4 years voting the standard, we haven't experienced that problem, right? I mean, I think in reality, if somebody having a car is that important to them, they would candidly live somewhere else. Because I don't think it's probably practical to be a long-term parker in the city garage, but I do think it's probably very helpful from like a retail and business component for downtown. But we're not trying to advocate that that's a solution for our request. We just don't think that there is demonstrated demand from renters in the market for more than this level of parking. And if that were to change, I think it'd be, our loss from, having residents, candidly.
Questions?
Not for me.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. now, I'd like to open the floor up for a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak for or against this issue.
All right, I guess I'll go first. Jason Keller, live at 2660 Danbury Drive, but my wife and I own an adjacent property on Glen and Toomer. It's 253 West Glen. First off, I want to say I'm not a anti-development reactionary. I think this development is a good thing. I hope it happens. I visited the Standard in Athens shortly after it opened, just looking at different student housing concepts. Landmark did a great job there, as they have here in Auburn at Standard, and I hope their project gets built. That said, I'm against this variance. It shouldn't be granted. I mean, we all understand it would be much more profitable if they could get it. And in their shoes, sure, I'd probably ask for a multi-million-dollar handout too, because why not? Doesn't hurt to ask. And Ms. Sorrells, you had a great question. Can't you just go up? Yes, they could. Because of the height limit, that means fewer bedrooms to build. That makes it less profitable. It means they get to offer one of Auburn's favorite families a little bit less money to make it happen, but it's doable. There are other ways to do it, but no development has ever been granted an easement like this or anywhere approaching this, and there's no reason to allow them to pass the burden of parking onto the city, especially not for free. Amending the application to stop requests like this before they even come here so that people like us don't panic and think, there's no way they're going to pass this, right? There's no way they're going to pass it. Well, we might as well go down and make sure they don't do anything that's completely unprecedented, unsupported by the laws, unsupported by the norms, unimaginable unless you do something completely against the advice of planning staff and radically departing from everything else that Auburn has ever said. But I guess they have a right to be heard. So every other development that they pointed out, including the Standard, was built to the required parking standard for their development. Over the last decade, lots of student housing has gone up. It's all been built to the required parking standard. They didn't get any special treatment. They didn't get any handouts from the city, nor should the applicant in this case. And the Standard did a great job in the way they did this, making their parking garage one that was available to non-residents to use as a paid parking garage. I don't think the zoning really thought anyone was going to do that. It doesn't seem contemplated in the zoning ordinance, but they had a brilliant creative solution and does a couple of things. If they're right that their residents don't actually use 1 or 1.1 spaces per bedroom, great, they get to recoup some of their costs by using that as a public parking garage. Actually kind of helps the city out a little bit too. Creates some flexibility. More people downtown during the day, and then residents get to park there at night. So it kind of works out well for everybody, although yeah, it did cost them a lot more money, but that was baked into their penciling this out from the beginning, so it doesn't really hurt them. I do note that in their assertion that the actual usage in the garage is below the legal requirement, doesn't account for a few things.
Sorry to interrupt. You're over time, so can you just quickly wrap it up?
By their own numbers, they want to use their current usage 82 to 84% of the requirement. Their own numbers don't support that. Residents of their garages have to pay for parking. More would use it except for that, which means anyone who doesn't want to pay might be parking elsewhere. Plus, every single guest, obviously, is parking elsewhere. In short, don't give them a handout. Your planning staff is awesome. They've been recognized by the American Planning Association. Listen to them, and you'll probably go right 99% of the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on this issue? All right, seeing no further comments, I'll close the public,
Yeah, don't do that yet. That means we're adjourned.
close the public hearing. And open to board discussion.
Everybody speak at once.
My main question here is, I understand we can't control stormwater, but they can't build on the entire piece of land because of the drainage pipe, which is a hardship in my mind. Now,
They can build.
they can build,
They can build.
They can build.
which is important to know.
They can't build what they want.
They can't build what they
Right.
want. And they may not be able to build what they want profitably
Correct.
to do it,
Which is not really a reason
which
to
is not
grant a
real,
variance.
right. But looking at the use of downtown, is any other potential project gonna have the same issue? Profitability wise, purchase wise, price wise, all the kinds of things. Is this gonna come back to us again in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year with the same issues? Because we can't move the drainage pipe.
I mean, I see your point, but that's out of the purview of our board to discuss, and I'm glad that you raised that point, because I think that that's one of the great benefits of having this board, is it brings up sort of, tangles in what we are obligated to judge against versus what, the market or people's demands or the public or whatever, things that they may now deem more or less important. I mean, priorities change. That's why we have updates to our zoning ordinances in a planning process in the first place. So I'm glad I think that's a valid point. I just don't, I mean, that's not something we're able to address here. And that's come up on so many other, issues.
Yeah, it's not that we don't think in my mind, it's not that I don't think it's a great development and probably a good use of space. I do understand it's gonna relocate lots of students who live there. That's probably a lot more affordable than what is planned, what this planned development is. So there's that to consider. And it's probably good to redevelop that area, but it's not that you can't, there's clearly people living on it, there,
Right.
it is available.
It's usable now.
You can do something on it, you just might not can do this. And we don't set precedent, I mean, that's not what variance does, no variance sets precedents, but this would open the door for any other developer who wants to come in on anything else to come back at us and say, well, why, we want this too, so.
And I think the key thing is that variances should be an exception to the
Not a
rule.
rule, yeah.
And I think if we look at the hardships, there are no hardships because the property can be built, can be developed on that property. It's just that it's not in the configuration in which they want. And I think we just have to kind of keep the focus as to what our job here is from a BZA standpoint.
Yeah.
So with that said, I mean, I am not in support of this variance. But I'm not here to shut the conversation down.
I mean, we have, all these criteria we have to judge it on, and I think that, it has to meet all of the requirements, right? Not just one. So
Correct.
everything that it's judged against, whether it's in harmony, whether it will permit the establishment of any use which is not permitted, unique circumstances, unnecessary hardship.
I mean, I think there probably are unique circumstances for sure, I would agree, but that might be the only one that's met. And is this the only, I mean, how many, plans have we made of this? Like, is there not a way to shift parking all to one side? I mean, like, I don't know how many
so-
iterations of the plan.
So
they've had.
I don't want to speak for how many iterations to the plan there are, but it's one of the things I kind of mentioned in the staff report. So like I said, like due to the difference in between like the parking requirements in UNW and UC, one of the things that they were able to do by citing 560 beds on the UNW side versus 260 and 76 beds on the other side,
Right.
they're already able to reduce their parking considerably. And like I said, there's a 10% required difference in those, and so that's already like one manipulation with the configuration that they've done. And I guess just kind of one of the things I did want to mention. This site would be one of the few sites downtown that would actually would not have to split their building. We're working on another project right now. As the zoning ordinance reads, any other property that has street frontage has to split its building based on the 240 block breaks that the buildings go through. So if this building were to go block to block, like from Wright to Toomer Street, it'd be one of the few buildings that could have a contiguous building. As the zoning ordinance reads in other places in the downtown, like UNW and UC, it would have to be broken every 240 feet. And so there would be a breakthrough. So pretty much all the other buildings downtown that are this big, that would get built post, I guess like once that was changed, would be split and would be broken anyway.
What's the motivation behind that?
Yeah, so that just has to do with just the massing of the building, from people who don't want to walk alongside these massive buildings that they feel don't have ends. And so it was one of the things that they made, kind of with the DDRC and everything. It was one of the communications that people weren't quite able to articulate, but that was kind of one of the things that we got down to, like what the issue was. And so, like I said, this building benefits because it does not have street frontage on its long side. The street frontages are on right in Toomer. And so the long side of the building is hidden and does not have to be broken. But like I said, the split of the building, if you just want to develop large student family or large multifamily or student housing downtown in Auburn, the building would be broken up normally every 240 feet anyway.
Do you want us to call for a motion?
Or points of discussion? Okay, I make a motion to deny BZ 2024-008.
Second.
Will Faulkner,
Yes.
Frost Rollins, Emmy Sorrells,
Yes.
Letitia Smith,
Yes.
Marty Heffron,
Yes.
5-0.
So that variance request is denied, and we will now move on to the next item on our agenda. It's gonna take me a second. Got a lot to flip
I
through here.
know.
So this is item BZ 2024-009, 508 Cary Drive, correct?
Correct. Yes, so this request is for 10 feet to the required 35-foot minimum front setback requirement to allow for a minimum setback of 25 feet. So this variance is to section 50201, table 5-2, regarding lot area setback, bulk regulations, and parking requirements in the neighborhood conservation zoning district in the City of Auburn zoning ordinance. The property is located at 508 Cary Drive in the NC 18 zoning district. And this zoning district requires a minimum front setback of 35 feet to the front yard. As you can see right here, the subject property is surrounded pretty much on all sides in view by the NC 18 zoning district as well. So on their site plan, everything in the red is what is being proposed to be input, and the applicant is proposing to put in that rectangle on the bottom right here, if it works, is an 870 square foot garage addition, and the doors would be facing north instead of how the current garage is facing west towards the street. The proposed garage would encroach within that setback, as you can see that blue line right there, within that 30-foot minimum setback by 9.9 feet, hence the request for the 10-foot to allow a 25-foot minimum and bring it into compliance. I also wanted to mention, based on some correspondence that I received from the neighbor to the north, that this driveway addition, though it's not the subject of being encroaching on the setback, the driveway location would be moved from where it currently sits. It's kind of hard to see in this photo. From where it currently sits a little north to allow for access into the new garage from the north. And
So a new curb cut?
yeah, new curb cut. And the correspondence that I received was concerned just about the inputting of the driveway and how it would impact the removal of the mature trees that exist on the subject property, and also the cars being closer to her property would concern her by how much plantings there are needed to add to buffer from the noise and from the view. So with that being said, I'm here to answer any questions you all have on this request. I also included some street view photos of how the driveway and the garage currently look versus the side of the property where the new access would be taken.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, this property was constructed in 2019, so where they placed the house and the garage could have been addressed at that point, correct? Like this zoning had been in place well before that.
Oh, well before that, yes. And the applicant is here if y'all have any questions regarding the request.
Yes.
How you doing? I'm Bud Worthy, applicant. Just here to answer any questions that you might have. My family has, we have a few more drivers in the family now than when we moved in. Next year, we're about to have another driver, and this just will help us keep cars off the street. And, that's the main reason.
Can you go to that picture of the garage? We can see the garage. Yes. That slide in the front. Yeah.
So what are you proposing to happen with this current curb cut? Would that be completely?
That would
you
be done
level
away
it,
with,
Add the
yes.
curb back and move it,
Correct,
And-
yes, and landscaped.
landscape all the way to the road? Okay.
That's right.
So it's
that-
not, it's just impervious surface right there? Like that's, I'm sorry, that's like
Yes,
just
it's
gravel
cur-
beyond that?
It's
Okay.
currently a gravel driveway beyond the concrete apron there. And we would pour a driveway, the new driveway, proposed new driveway would come in to the left of the mailbox. That's my daughter's car there on the street, but that's what we're, with the front entrance garage, it kind of hinders where we can park and get in and out of the garage. And we have limited space on the right side because you can't really tell here, but the lot drops off a bit. And if we were to kind of build that up and make that additional parking, a lot of the mature trees there in that between my property and my neighbor's property would be damaged probably in the process.
Yeah, so that was my question that I was gonna ask you. Were there some other configurations that you had looked at that would not require variance, that you could still get another parking space or two?
Not really. I've studied it. I'm a builder, home builder, so I've kind of looked at every configuration I can think, and this would seem to alleviate the problem as well as kind of not be a detraction for the neighborhood.
It seemed like one of your neighbors was concerned about the taking down of trees. Do you have an idea of what you would have to take down? Or
I've talked to her. She called me this week, and we talked. She was not against this at all. At least that's what she said to me. There are a couple kind of scrub trees in the front. Again, it's kind of hard to tell from this picture, but a lot of those trees are not really trees worth keeping. They're there, but one, as a matter of fact, is dying. So that would be one that we would have to take out. But this plan would allow fewer trees to be disrupted, taken down.
And is there anything in the ordinance that would prevent the applicant from squeezing in a non-contiguous parking space anywhere on the property?
No, just so in the site plan there'd have to be a review of ISR, but that's it. So I guess that's impervious surface ratio. But as I said, on larger lots, it's usually not an issue, and even still, I mean, they'd have the option of putting in gravel somewhere.
Can you get back to the site plan? So, but as it sits right now, there's no way to add additional parking anywhere else on that lot.
Not without just parking a car in my front yard.
Right, yeah.
Which I don't think any of the neighbors, including myself, would prefer.
And you could
We're
go-
pretty close there on the right side, as you
Right.
can see. If without the red addition, it's virtually no space to park there on the right side of the existing garage entrance.
So you would be connecting to the current garage, which would
Yes,
turn into like a
yes.
living space?
It would be connected
Okay.
and just extended a little further forward, and then it would then become a side entrance,
Okay.
courtyard type entrance garage.
But you're still only getting 2 cars in the garage, right?
Yes, just two, but it would still be a 2-car garage, but the little turnaround pad would allow parking there in the front and not get in the way of the garage entrance.
Is the old garage still a garage, or is it becoming part of the house? I'm sorry, I missed that.
It will become just part of the house, storage. I'm already using half the garage for storage anyhow, but my wife uses the other half, as you can probably imagine.
Tends to happen.
But it would just be kind of a storage area to keep things, trash cans, things like that, out of sight.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, I'd like to open the public forum. Would anyone like to speak on this item?
I will say, when I talked to Jamie, my neighbor, we talked this week, and we are planning to do some landscaping there in the front. And, if approved, I told her we could do any kind of landscaping she wanted to do, if that was a concern. So that's something I'm perfectly willing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no requests to speak, I'm going to close the public hearing and open to board discussion.
How busy is Cary Drive?
Is he?
So if it was me and you could provide a safer access for, like, you gotta back out of that garage now, right? You gotta back onto Cary Drive? Yeah. To me, that doesn't make sense. And even if you don't own the house, the next people that move in, that's what I would look for as well. I would want a house I could back out of my driveway into a space, and then I could go out and I could see, you know what I mean?
It would be a safer way out.
Yeah, and then you don't want your daughter parking on the street or your son parking on the street, getting out, you know what I mean?
And it's
And
like
yet-
a bike lane.
It's a
and
bike
walking.
lane,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah,
That was
I mean-
a good picture to show.
But we have this condition all over the city where we
Yeah.
have to have on-street parking or you have to add something behind, or, there's multiple ways to
Yeah,
get creative.
so-
what's the setback on the back? They're within the setback on the back of the house, right?
Yeah.
So they technically could have moved the house a little bit further
If they had
back.
moved the house back further, we wouldn't even be having this discussion.
Right.
That's
Or build a
the
garage
kicker.
on the back.
So as far as the curb cut and then I think kind of backing on onto the street, so just kind of this road classification doesn't really warrant, I think, scrutiny as far as like number of curb cuts or like things kind of backing out. And so we have had issues with other projects where that is a deal killer on a project, where if the
City property or something.
yeah, yeah. So like if on things on East University, or I mean like Ross, for example, like if a lot of those things were to redevelop, entrance onto those busier roads would not be granted. There would have to be a side access street for that. But with this just kind of being, I want to say the classification on this, it's one of the lowest, like a residential road, local street. There are no curb cut distances required, and then also just as far as like the concern about backing onto the street, just kind of on this from a engineering perspective, from like what they look at, this was not raised as a concern. That was one of the things that we vetted, just because that was a part of the application as well, just kind of asking about curb cuts. But like I said, for them, this doesn't register on these roads.
I feel your pain. I'm about to double the number of drivers in my household too, so it's not pretty.
I still live in the same neighborhood. I feel your pain with the extra parking. It does make sense. So I guess if we're thinking about this, I would definitely want a condition on the fact that they don't keep that curb cut, and have sort of a rotunda type of situation. I'd want to make sure it was conditioned on the fact that they were going to replace that curb cut and add, landscaping. Because in effect, even though we don't want to be parking in front of the house, you are in fact going to be parking in front of the house in this scenario. So I think, just in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, and I feel like your neighbors would probably appreciate that very much, would be to add some nice, green screen type landscaping too. So that would be my recommendation, would be to condition, if we're going down that path, is to condition that.
I feel that there are other ways that we could address the issue, or those could be explored first, and we all choose to use our driveways the way we do, we can back in and then be able to pull out, or, I feel like there are things that could help you reach your goal, that haven't been explored here, so, I'm not convinced there's a reasonable justification for granting the variance.
And I would agree with that as well.
Okay, I make a motion to deny this item, BZ 2024-009.
Second?
Will Faulkner,
Yes.
Frost Rollins,
Yes.
Emmy Sorrells,
No.
Letitia Smith,
Yes.
Marty Heffron.
No,
3-2.
That's denied, correct? Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, so for our next item, we have a next item.
Yes, you do.
I'm telling you, this packet's so much bigger than
You don't
usual.
need some gym, you got a lot of stuff to do.
All right. So BZ 2024010, 471 Ogletree Road, requesting a variance of 11 feet to the required 40-foot setback to allow a rear setback of 29. Take it away.
Yes, thank you. The subject property is at 471 Ogletree Road. The zoning ordinance requires that lots greater than 40,000 square feet in a conventional subdivision should have a rear setback, thank you, of no less than 40 feet.
Did that.
The subject property is in the rural zoning district. In the area is NC 50 as well as NC, my eyesight is really bad. I can't even, 26, thank you. So the rural zoning district requires a 3-acre lot minimum. The subject property is non-conforming in that sense, and that is, it is just over 2 acres. NC 50 requires a 50,000 square foot lot minimum, and 26 is a 26,000 lot minimum. The aerial view of the property shows significant mature tree growth on the subject property as well as on the adjacent properties. This property has been within the Aldridge family for 80 years. The addition, they wish to construct an addition onto the rear of the home. The property has frontage on both Ogletree Road and Wrights Mill Road. It does front Ogletree Road. So the rear addition would be closest to the property to the north at 2001 Wrights Mill Road. It would still be just over 200 feet from that adjacent structure. A certificate of occupancy was issued for the existing home in 1993. The home currently has a rear setback of 55 feet, which does conform with the 40-foot rear setback requirement. The addition would encroach 11 feet into that setback on the west side. The majority of the addition would be located within the setback, but just over, well, about 260 square feet of the 650 square foot addition would encroach into the setback. If the home were to face towards the west and the same plan was proposed, a variance would not be needed. They would be able to meet that 15-foot side setback as well as the 40-foot rear setback. And variances may be appropriate for properties with exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape. So that's just something to consider, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Would the applicant like to speak?
Yes, please. Hi. My name is Adrienne Aldridge. I am the only child of Sandra Aldridge, and I'm the youngest child of Earl and Eleanor Aldridge of Auburn, Alabama. 471 Ogletree Road is not just another address for me. 471 Ogletree Road is the address of my family and my grandparents. It is a staple of the Wrights Mill Road community. It's always sit on the corner. My grandparents raised their family on this land. It included my mother as the youngest of 9 children who grew up there, being at this address. My mother lived here as the youngest child with her siblings, and losing my grandmother, her mother, taking care of her nieces and nephews, and even taking care of my grandfather up until his death at this very address. My cousins of all ages have memories of the 471 address in their own way. And in 1993, as she said, my aunts and uncles made the decision to build a new home house that was more upgraded for the family to still come to, as the old home house had been there for years. My aunt and uncle lived in a home, and my mother moved in permanently when my uncle passed away. As a house is 31 years old, on there or about as of now, and I have the hardship of accommodating my family in the current structure of the home. I would like to finish the work that my mother was trying to finish in maintaining the property and the house as it is as a whole, as a staple of the community, as it sits on the corner. As a house and the property needs upkeep, I moved home to Auburn to take care of my mommy. And as my mommy passed in this very home, I have gained a greater appreciation and affection for the house as I go through the precious pictures, discovering lifelong accomplishments that were left there and trinkets, and uncover the memories as I go through the house as it is left to me now. I'm asking that you aid me, as I would like to honor my mommy's wishes and my grandparents' legacy and make the house and the property my own and accommodate my family. In the request, I don't foresee this variance being a hindrance to my neighbors, as there is still a buffer of wooded trees in between us that will still be remaining. I appreciate your time and thank you, and I would greatly appreciate this variance.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me?
I do have a question. I'll start by saying, love your story, the personal testament that you have for your family, the history that your family has in this home on this property. And I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
My question, though, is kind of going to what the city reported. Have you considered the configuration that they proposed that would not require a variance?
Could you go into more detail? I'm sorry. Could you say it again?
That was just sort of to point out if the home originally had been moved.
Oh, okay.
Right,
I thought that
'cause-
was an option that we had presented, and then, I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm sorry, I must misheard what that had been reported. I thought that there was another configuration that you could deploy that would not result in a variance. Have you explored every way to build out the home?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, the old remnants of the first home are still there, and that was something that was left as a family wanted to honor the old house. So the old foundation or renderings thereof, the base of the house and the steps and porch are still there remaining. So that's what you see when you pass by on the side of the house, or else it would have been easier. You could have also done that.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, the thing that is preventing you from coming up with a different configuration or exploring it or executing it is the desire to preserve the old foundation.
Yes.
Okay, and is that just a foundation, or does it still have a porch, or?
It does. All of that is still there. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, so it's the.
So the structure's still
It's
there.
the plan. It's the
Right, the
original plan
basis of the
and
structure.
original structure.
And I don't know if he could explain more, but
Okay, that's what I thought. Just wanted to make sure.
So what Amber's saying is if that house had been oriented towards Wright's Mill,
There would be space.
there would be space
Right.
far in the back. Like, that would not be an issue as it is, the way that, and I mean, when this was built, there was probably none of this around. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think the question I guess for Mike was more Had y'all considered, instead of putting the addition, I guess on the back, which would be the north side of the house, had y'all considered putting the addition on the east side of the house?
May I answer that question, please?
Yeah, certainly.
My name is Malta Jones, and I'm a friend of the family. The septic tank is on the opposite side, so she did consider, that, but because that tank is there, it's hard, it's impossible, well, not impossible, but it would require
It would make
a
it more
lot.
challenging, and if you ever had to replace that septic tank, you would be digging it out,
Yes.
okay. Also,
And the fill lines and all of that.
will y'all just also make sure you're signing in before you, okay, sorry, I didn't know, but thank you for answering that, you don't have to do it right now, but yes, okay, that makes
was a
sense.
question.
And I'll sign in too. We got a whole bunch. My name's Mike Marr. I work for Precision Surveying, and their builder, Fletcher Baldwin, contacted us. There's one other little piece to this puzzle which is unusual. At first he said we need a variance. I said, why do you need it? Because if you look on the Lee County GIS, that property is a great deal larger. As a matter of fact, went back in the records and found that the tax records have been assigning a 4-acre parcel to this property, which is actually 2 acres. So when Fletcher Baldwin first started looking at the project, he had no idea that he was in a variance issue, because the property, if you look along Wrights Mill Road, was actually 260 feet wide, not 130. So in the process of doing deed research and then the survey, we found out that the city's GIS is correct and the Lee County GIS was incorrect, which was a surprise to everybody, because they've been paying taxes on 4 acres of land for like 100 years. And now they just found out that they have half as much land as they thought they did. So it really did come as a surprise. They'd done all the design work and then found out the property was a great deal smaller than it actually is. So I just wanted to give that little bit of information as well.
Thank you.
Well, that's
Yes, ma'am.
important to
And
know
that's
as well.
been validated by both parties, by the county and the city?
Yes, ma'am,
it's
and
been
I actually have
discussed?
copies of the survey. Mr. Byrd lives, and he's sitting right over there. He'll probably talk in the public hearing. We went back to the original deeds. The Mosley property is what bounded it. The description actually says, go along the road to the old Alabama Power Dam, which is Wrights or Ogletree Road, and then along Wrights Mill Road to the Mosley property, and then follow the Mosley property to get back to the road. So it's
'Cause
very
people are just
inspecific.
Immortal, they're gonna live forever. So.
Yes, but the Mosley property is a property that was broken up into 4 parcels. Mr. Byrd owns the piece that adjoins there. And we have the old T. Richard Fuller survey from 1991 and then 1978 that shows that's where the property line actually goes.
So there's multiple sources validating, yeah.
Oh, yes, I've got deeds and plats, and yes, ma'am. And I could provide that to the planning office if they
I will
need
say,
it.
I'm also in real estate, I find that a lot, Mary and Will can probably attest to that. I find that the city GIS is far more accurate than the county on a number of occasions. So.
It is. However, when the builder first came, we were hoping y'all were wrong. But I said they can't both be right.
Yeah.
So we found out that the city GIS was correct and the Lee County was incorrect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing. You can speak back there, sir, if that's easier.
I'm Bill Byrd. I own the property y'all talking about next to Aldridge's. I bought the property in 1991, and Richard Fuller surveyed it. I've got the original maps and all. It was 22 acres total for sale, and I bought the partial on the end. And the reason I didn't buy it all, it was 15% interest rate at the time. And I couldn't afford it. In fact, Alan Norman loaned me the money to buy it. But anyway, I've got a map that shows, all of it. And somebody told me it was a subdivision. There's not but 2 houses, only mine and one other one. So, and they're on the corner. And Richard Aldridge, their brother, or uncle, whoever he is, I don't know. But anyway, he used to visit me, and you'll notice on the original survey, there was a power line that went right through their their house they built. And they had to move the power line. I got Phil Cloudis, who bought the 5 acres next to me, and we got the Alabama Power to move the power line to the street. And I've approached Glennie, well, Richard, I approached him, and he couldn't do anything because he said all his daughters, sisters were involved. And anyway, they just mortgaged it, and they couldn't trade anything. So I was wanting to maybe swap a piece of Wrights Mill Road for the swamp and just a little bit over by Joe Lovin. And that, cause I only got 20 foot on that side. I don't know if y'all let me put a road in on 20 foot or not, so. But anyway, I've got right at 7 acres there, and I've been there, built the house in '94, and I've got the power line moved probably in '93 or '44, somewhere in the early '90s, and then Richard died, and Glennie moved in, Glennie Williams, and her granddaughter, I think it was, lived with her for a while when she got older, and she was a nurse, I think, in West Point. But nobody lives there now, so never any cars there. So anyway, I don't want an easement across my property if I can keep from it. So on the end, but I would negotiate with them anything. In fact, I'm gonna get them to call me and talk to them. Other than that, that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to
And,
speak? Oh, yeah.
I'm legally blind. I can't see this to sign it. I'll get my son to sign it for me.
Sounds good.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
You gonna sign it for me?
I'll get it for you. Bill, what's your first name?
Yeah, William A. Bird. Bill, either one.
What's your address out there, sir?
Mhm.
What's your address?
2001
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? So I'll close the public hearing, seeing no further comment, and open to board discussion.
Amber, did you say something about like a long skinny, I mean, if it was a long skinny lot, that there was leniency with that?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, it's, a variance can be appropriate by reasonable exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or by shape by reason of other exceptional topographic conditions. Not to mention, they thought the property was larger than it actually was.
Yeah, that's,
There was-
That to me is a pretty extenuating, and they've been paying taxes on that additional property that doesn't actually belong to them. So no easement is gonna be created. I did wanna tell you, no easement will be created. I know that was alluded to in the public comments, but, you know, we can't, you don't wanna be building on top of a septic tank, and we all know, if you've ever had to deal with a septic tank, more often than not, that's gonna have to be moved at some point, you know, over time, and you have to move field lines. So you don't wanna have a structure on top of that, and I just don't know if they can go on, you know, you don't want them any closer, obviously, to Wrights Mill Road, at that because that's the intersection right there.
And it's still not affecting the privacy situation. for
Correct.
them.
Right,
Lots of
yeah.
mature trees and everything else too.
that's good to me. Okay, I make a motion to approve this item, BZ 2024010.
Second.
Will Faulkner,
Yes.
Frost Rollins,
Yes.
Amy Sorrells,
Yes.
Letitia Smith,
Yes.
Marty Heffron,
Yes.
5-0.
So that item, that variance has been approved. Have any additional business to discuss?
No, I think hope to not have like 3 variances on the same on the same meeting again. Yeah, so I don't think we have any trainer anything coming up. I don't think I have just preemptively. I'm pretty sure there's going to be another application soon. I just kind of associated with another project, but that's it. So that's all I got.
I know, as someone who spoke in the public hearing alluded to, is there any process to like kind of stopping those applications when we know for a fact that they're just, I mean, people have the right, I guess, to come to ask for a
Yeah.
variance, so you can't really tell them.
Yeah, certainly.
No.
So I guess that's something that I think we've tried to curtail a little bit. I think in kind of parsing these out a little more, We do try to understand just kind of what the minimum variance needed to be granted would be. And so either the applicant will provide that or we'll request a meeting with them to get that information. Pretty much just kind of from my perspective, I think that would be preferred if we could do that, but legally people are entitled to the right to apply for a variance. I think some of them now, like use variances, those are not legitimate under any circumstances. You cannot ask for a use variance. We've had use variance applications and we've shut them down, and where we did not even put together anything or call a meeting for it. So those are really the only circumstances where we can voluntarily shut them down. But like I said, people are entitled to variances. I think one of the things that we've kind of worked a little more on our side recently has been exploring other options besides the variance. Just because we don't want a property to always have variances, because variances they travel with the land, they never go away. Like I said, I mean, it came up, the attorneys love to mention how there was a short-term rental that used the variance granted a duplex as justification for their short-term rental uses that was granted back in the 60s. So those are things that, like I said, that we wanted to avoid. And so if there's a resolution to be had another way without coming to you all, I think that's one of the things that we explore now. But there isn't a mechanism, like I said, with most legitimate variances where we can just turn them down voluntarily. So, I mean, if you'll have anything to add to that. But yeah, so that's really it. So just kind of in the process, like I said, I mean, we, when people kind of outline like, hey, I think this might be an issue, we really do work to find a solution. And like I said, sometimes they just might be, hard-headed and want to seek the variance anyway. But it's, like I said, they're entitled to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.